Landfall. At last, the Apollo had negotiated the boom of wrecked sails in the entrance to the Hudson River and beached itself on a silt bank alongside the old Cunard Pier. Lulled by the steady beat of the pumps and the confidence that even if the Apollo foundered, they could swim ashore, the crew and expedition members had fallen silent. When the Apollo buried its wounded bows in the wet silt, everyone gathered at the rail, looking at the vivid quays in front of them, at the soundless city with its great towers and abandoned streets, a million empty windows lit by the afternoon sun. Already they could see the dunes that filled the floors of these deserted canyons. The rolling sand lay 10 feet deep, undisturbed by any footstep for almost a century, smoothed by the onshore winds and covered with a fine glaze of golden dust. For Wayne, it seemed a magical carpet, a metallized dream from the fairy tales of his childhood. He held his breath as the ship settled into the mud under the falling tide and prayed that the silence and calm aboard the Apollo would not give way to a sudden, greedy stampede. There was more than enough for them all. Gold beyond the dreams of Columbus, Cortez, and the conquistadors. Wayne had a vision of the crew and passengers dressed in their coronation armor. He himself in gilded doublet and hose, and Summers in gleaming breastplates and skirt of gold leaf, Paul Ricci in a sinister black and gold armor, Steiner in a golden cape at the helm of a new gold-plated Apollo ready for its return voyage in triumph to Plymouth and the Old World. The ship's siren hooted, 3 long blasts that shattered Wayne's ears. The sounds echoed among the silent skyscrapers, reverberated to and fro across Central Park, and were lost miles away in uptown Manhattan. Wayne clung to the faint echoes. In some way, the harsh noise marked the real moment of their arrival, releasing them all from the voyage across the Atlantic, closing the past behind them as they prepared to step ashore. Like the immigrants of old, each had brought a small, precious baggage, a clutch of hopes and ambitions to be bartered against the possibilities of this new land. McNair was thinking of gold. He stood on the forward docking bridge by the coal bunker hatchway and wiped the black anthracite dust from his beard. He was looking up at the Cunard Wharf and at the very different dust that lay over the sunlit dunes. The sand was now an almost liquid bronze in the late afternoon. A desert sea had flowed through Manhattan and congealed around these huge towers. The ravages of a century's hostile climate had split the Appalachians and sprung this ransom from their hidden lodes. Already McNair was thinking hard, deciding how best they could gather in this golden crop. Rather than disturb the surface with spade and shovel or with a mechanized dragline, they needed a modified combine harvester, which they could then drive across the dunes, its specially slatted blades scooping up just the precious topsoil. McNair stared back at the huge buildings, at the giant piers of the concrete expressways and overpasses. True, he had been surprised by the brute size of the suspension bridge across the Narrows and by the vast dimensions of the old United States and the Nimitz, but already McNair's pugnacity had returned, and he had every intention of meeting this great continent on his own terms. The years of training at the Marine Engineering School in the Glasgow shipyards would not be wasted. The skills needed to resurrect this dormant giant, to wake its railroads, dams and bridges, its mines and industries, were very much those that lay in his own hands. The computer men and communications wizards could come later, when the basic clockwork was ticking soundly.